Second speaker today is Max Heffler. Max here has been a network architect for many years prior to joining Carriwick, which he did 2 years ago. He received his bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering from Rice here in Houston. He's married and father of 3 daughters. In his spare time, Max plays keyboards and sings in a rock band. He sings in a choir and weekly for a retirement home. And he spends many hours on genetic genealogy. Max is delivering his 5th speech today from the Competent Communicator Manual, and it's entitled Diversions. Please welcome Max.
Mr. Toastmaster, distinguished guests, fellow members, welcome to my 5th speech on diversions. In a sense, it partially summarizes a nostalgic look back through many of my previous speech topics about my hobbies, hopefully in some new ways. After my parents had 3 daughters, I came along. And when I was old enough I played Little League for a couple of years. And then, but I was a skinny, scrawny kid, and I really didn't have any talent or ability or interest. And after 2 years, had enough of warming the bench in Little League, so I decided to quit and focus on playing piano, which I did have a talent for. I also played violin and sang in the choir. And in high school, I grew my hair halfway down my back and joined rock bands. I'd always sat while playing the piano, but in rock bands I ended up standing to play. And not much of a dancer, but I tend to dance around quite a lot when I play keyboards in the band. I performed in numerous musical comedy plays, and of course with my hair halfway down my back, there was at least one incident where I had to stuck it up underneath the wig. In my senior year in college, I began taking yoga and jogging, and continued in my graduate year when I met my first wife. I purchased my first PC and stopped playing in the bands, and when my back went out, I stopped exercising and started to gain weight. And when we had our first child, then everybody asked me when I was expecting. I started exercising regularly and began losing the weight. And I continued to play on baby grand piano I had and the smaller keyboard of the PC. And as the 18-year marriage was beginning to fall apart, I began competing with my ex at open mics at local clubs, and then joined a rock band and started to perform in public once again. At one point I was contracting at Enron, and they had an on-site fitness center, which I took advantage of. Not long after that, I quit consulting, and I began consulting and spent a lot of time traveling. Then I met my wife and decided to stop consulting and traveling and got remarried. I continued to exercise, but it wasn't long before the band wanted someone that had more time than I was willing to give to it, so we parted ways. And my wife dipped her toe into exercise, but she didn't want to spend as much time as I was spending. And I had the opportunity to perform in numerous plays, several of which were with my wife and one in a lead role. After my 8.5-year run at Exxon, I went to Chevron, where they had an on-site fitness center. And it was the same fitness center, coincidentally, that I had used when I was at Enron many years before. And since it was right there on the premises, for 4 lunches every week I took classes, and on the 5th lunch I ran. I took yoga, and Pilates, and total athletic conditioning, and awesome abs, and hardcore, and boot camp classes, just to name a few. I mentioned the 5th lunch I jogged 3 miles on the treadmill. When Hurricane Ike came and I was kept from my gym, I decided to run around the Braes Bayou near my house. It was then that I found out I could run for 4 miles. I was the only one to show up for a holiday eve class at Chevron, and the instructor wouldn't hold the class just for me. So he told me to get on the treadmill, and then he told me to go faster. And then I found out not only could I do 4 miles, but I could do 4 miles fast. And so I was exercising 6 days a week, twice on Friday. And on my 2 weekend workouts, I would run and swim and lift weights. And then my Bally's gym closed, so I joined 24-Hour Fitness. The team that I worked with at Chevron were early. Many people worked an early shift. They would get there 7 o'clock, 7 to 4. So I tended to work the same shift, and I began getting up at 4:30. And so I got up at 4:30 every day, including the weekends. So I start exercising at the gym before 6 a.m. every Sunday, and then I'm home by 8 o'clock and have the rest of the day ahead of me. When I began working at Canrig, I cut it back to my one fast 4-mile run, one lunch a week, and then I supplemented Thursdays with my slower 4-mile lunch over lunch on Thursdays, and Friday nights I run and swim. Saturdays I take off from exercise and I sing the retirement home, as was mentioned. On Mondays I take Pilates classes at one club and then immediately drive to another club where I take yoga Pilates on my way home. The Pilates class was the one class that my wife and I had done together until she began teaching Pilates much farther away from the house. Tuesday evening, my personal trainer comes to the house. He was a Chevron boot camp instructor that we decided to hire for our daughter. And then when our daughter quit, my wife started taking from him. And then my wife quit, I left Chevron, came here. I needed some supplement, so I started taking from him. In fact, he came to beat me up last night. So I take Wednesdays off. I still play keyboards in a rock band. This one for about the past 7 years, where we've had a number of different singers and bass players. I spend far too many hours on the home computer doing my volunteer work in genetic genealogy. For the last 3 months, I've begun studying about an hour a day for the fundamentals of engineering exam that I should have taken 35 years ago. That's when I'm not preparing for my next Toastmasters speech or my role. I used to do crossword puzzles at night before bed. About the time I finished my last crossword puzzle book was when I began studying for the fundamentals of engineering exam. So I haven't replaced that book yet. I've sort of replaced it for now with fundamentals of engineering. So I've always felt like a fish that has to keep swimming to stay alive. I haven't known boredom for many years since my diversions keep me busy. The only time that I really slowed down was lying in the pool for about an hour on the weekend. So thank you for taking this nostalgic journey back with me through my diversions today.